你好啊，點新聞記者，特首你好。咁政府咧將於4月1號啦逐步恢復公共服務啦，即係引發社會嘅異議嘅。即係以目前咧每日過萬宗嘅確診數字啦，即係現時逐步回復嘅話，會唔會覺得會令疫情反彈啦？會唔會有啲咩加強措施應對啦？咁第二條問題咧就係我哋收到有啲市民咧俾消防處安排入住竹篙灣之後啦，跟住再俾衛生署咧致電責怪，未能喺屋企等候隔離嘅。咁亦有長者咧，即係染疫嘅長者咧，俾醫管局啦催促出院啦。跟住之後咧，再俾社署啦，咁拒絕入住暫託中心嘅，即係顯示而家咧政府協調統籌工作啦，即係仍有改善之處嘅。想問下政府咧之後咧會點樣加強各部門之間嘅協調統籌，避免再出現類似嘅狀況，提升抗疫效率嘅。唔該晒。
第一個問題咧就係公務員事務局就發出咗一個通告。就係話俾相關嘅部門聽咧，就經過咗呢個第5波疫情，而家疫情咧係過咗個高峰，亦都開始穩定咧，係時候要向市民恢復翻正常嘅公共服務嚇。但係當然咧，亦都係逐步有序咁去恢復。同時間咧，亦都會所有服務市民嘅工作間，以至到公務員上班，一切咧都係會有非常之謹慎嘅防疫嘅措施嚇。相信咧公務員嘅同事可能仍然咧都係會係分更咁樣嚟到去上班，或者喺午飯嘅時候咧，亦都係分更咁出去，從而減少嗰個人流嘅聚集。但係正如我多次強調啦，喺公共衛生嘅領域，我哋當然係生命至上嚇，身體保持身體市民嘅身體健康，但係都唔能夠唔顧及整體嘅社會嘅經濟同埋發展需要。咁所以如果長期咁係將一啲公共服務，即係市民需要嘅服務，將佢放緩咗或者暫停咗咧，係會影響到廣大市民同埋香港個經濟嗰個復甦嘅速度嚇。第二個問題咧，就喺整個抗疫嘅工作裏邊，特別喺第5波嘅疫情，由於嗰個確診嘅個案係飆升得咁緊要咧，事實上係有一啲協調溝通統籌嘅工作咧係未盡完善嘅。咁即使喺安老嘅範疇，剛才羅局長用嘅字眼咧都係不足。我哋係承認有好多地方係不足嘅嚇。但呢個不足往往都係出現喺個能力係唔足夠去應付咁大規模嘅確診嘅個案。呢個不足亦都可能係出現喺啲部門咧互相嗰個溝通，因為每個部門都係專注佢自己嘅工作範圍，而係未能夠充分去溝通協調，等到受影響嘅人士咧可以第一時間得到呢個服務。咁所以你轉述或者我今朝喺報紙睇到有啲個別嘅個案喺確診之後進入去社區隔離設施，或者係喺確診之後入咗醫院，喺出院嘅時候安排有不足不善之處咧，我哋一定引以為鑑，會盡最大嘅努力咧去改善。多謝。
好，第二位記者嘅提問。我嘅右邊中間白色衫嗰位男記者。
Good morning. 2 questions from the South China Morning Post. So first, local media has reported that the government will substantially relax the so-called place-specific flight suspension mechanism to encourage more inbound flights back to Hong Kong. So Mrs. Lam, can you verify the news? So if so, what is the scale? And my next question is that Bernard Chan said this morning that he believed many of the company and people who left Hong Kong because of the quarantine measure will not likely return. And he also said that we need to wait and see if Hong Kong can maintain its status as a financial center. So what is your view about Chan's comment? And also, for the returning people, back to Hong Kong. So does the government have any plan to add more designated quarantine hotels on top of the current 43? So how can the government find more, and how many rooms does the government aim to have in total? Thank you.
Since my announcement on the 21st of March about lifting the place-specific flight suspension in respect of 9 countries, I did say on this occasion that there were 2 outstanding issues we need to tackle based on feedback given to us by the airlines, by the aviation industry, by people who have relatives stranded in those 9 countries. These 2 issues are, one is, yes, we could allow airlines to resume the inbound flights from these 9 countries by lifting the place-specific flight suspension regime. But at the same time, from the very beginning of fighting the epidemic, in order to prevent and reduce the importation of cases, there was always this other measure called the route-specific, flight-specific suspension. That is, if an inbound flight brought into Hong Kong a certain number of positive cases upon arrival. In other words, they boarded the plane with a negative PCR test, but then upon arrival, when they underwent the test and hold PCR test at the airport and was found to be positive. So that, of course, revealed that perhaps the rules have not been followed very stringently. I think we did have a case where one inbound flight brought in over 20 confirmed cases. So there is always this need to maintain this route-specific and flight-specific suspension measure. We have no plans to substantially reduce or relax the rule because this rule is needed in order to meet the fundamental objective of preventing the importation of cases, especially when a lot of countries and places have significantly relaxed many of the epidemic measures, including wearing masks and social distancing and vaccine pass and so on. So Hong Kong has to remain vigilant. So as far as this thing is concerned, the only thing is we are revisiting the various trigger thresholds to see whether there are sort of operational details that we could rationalize, but certainly not as described in the local media this morning as a major concession. I think the term used was 大讓步. We are not contemplating any major concession. As a matter of fact, this is an public health infection control measure. This is not a sort of a tug of war between the Hong Kong SAR government and individual airlines. Ultimately, we will act in the best interest of Hong Kong. The second issue that has been put to us is whether we have sufficient provision of designated quarantine hotels. For those who could get on a flight to come back, they need to produce proof of a pre-booked hotel for at least 7 nights. And prior to my announcement, I think we did not have the 43 hotels that you mentioned. We probably have about 25 designated quarantine hotels with about 6,000 rooms. And many of them were actually quite fully booked because other places could continue to come back. So I did promise again on this occasion that I will ask my colleagues to approach the hotels to see whether more of them could become a designated quarantine hotel. And on this front, we are making some good progress, and I believe the Food and Health Bureau will shortly announce that we are able to provide more designated quarantine hotels for those who could get on a flight and come back. So that's about the issue of Hong Kong residents aspiring to come back.